talk a little bit about that, what you started seeing, mistakes people were making, because a lot of times what we see is it's the intent isn't wrong. It's not off, but the execution and delivery is what gets them into trouble. So maybe tell us a little bit about, as you were doing this social media consulting, what was it about the compliance angle that you kept seeing again and again and again?
Yeah, right off the bat, when we were managing social for, I think at one point it was 20 companies, we were doing all the social media for them. This is kind of before companies knew how to do it on their own. And there weren't a lot of people, experts out there, and they didn't really understand the channel, which was a big part of why we were successful with it. And, we were finding every now and then posts would be a little bit claimy. Something would happen. The company would say, hey, we don't want the people saying this. And it's like, well, it's social media. It's not, you don't control the property. Right. And over time, it became really problematic. So we added a service line alongside our social media to manage that compliance, ultimately pivoting out of social media consulting specifically into just compliance, and then building our platform, FieldWatch, about 8 years ago. So, and with FieldWatch, that's what we do. We basically listen to the internet for violations of compliance on the social media channels, and we put it into a compliance management workflow for companies to be able to deal with.
Which for me is so important, because if you look at the industry, right, like I said, when you have an independent distributor force, there's tons of pros, but there's also some risks. There's a lot of cons where someone's brand new. They may not know the policies and procedures. They may not know that I can't say, hey, I lost 40 pounds in the first 3 months, because it's not typical, right? And so can't make those kind of claims. And so that's the risk too. And so that's what has fascinated me so much with what you guys did, is you created that listening tool first off that does that. So talk a little bit about that, like the benefit for a company. Also I know it's got to save them time and money and things. So what is the value that this can do? And also the prevention, because one of the unique things, maybe you can start with this story. We have, a mutual, company that we've both worked with on and off over the years, that you brought up saying, hey, they now are in some trouble compliance wise because of things that happened that they could have been ahead of. So tell us a little bit about that tool and what that can prevent.
Well, there's two aspects to your question. One is, how does it benefit companies? I mean, really, when it comes down to it, companies have to manage the compliance of their field. There's no putting your head in the sand. There's no waiting for it to come to you. It has to be proactively done with the best technology, the best tools, best processes, the best people, with a funded compliance department that reports hopefully through legal and is independent somewhat internally. And they have to have the best practices and how they enforce that. It's a prevention of regulatory risk is the
sticking your head in the sand isn't a compliance strategy, right?
It's a pretty poor one, yeah.
You can't just claim they did it on Facebook. I'm not my problem.
If you just shut your eyes, you don't see it, right?
Yeah,
exactly. It didn't happen. No, that's pretty much not done anymore. I think most companies are very aware they need to manage this issue. It is I would say an existential issue to the industry, in that regulators are really all about income and product claims and making sure that people aren't advertising on behalf of the company they work for things that aren't true according to the regulations. So first and foremost, to answer your question, is about protecting companies, protecting the company from regulatory risk, number one. Number two is workflow. I mean, the internet's a big place. It's hard to manage all the things out there. You have one person with 5 different internet or social media channels, and they're posting the same thing to it. And so it's just, again, the network effect of all of these things, claims that could be out there that need to be managed. And you need a really, really strong high-tech tool to be able to manage that. So you need to be able to find those things and then put them into the proper workflow, and then have eventually human eyes on it, because someone has to work with the field to get it rectified. So with that, you've got, workflow, you've got reduced headcount because a lot of it's automated. You're putting people in the right seats, and that they're going to be working with the field versus just sitting on Google all day. So there's a lot of kind of workflow benefits to having a compliance management process and platform. Obviously there's cost savings in that, because it's expensive to run.
And I think one of the unique things that, we've talked about in the past is it also takes a different type of person to just go and research on Google, and someone else to deal with the distributor, right? And so you've got the same person doing that. They're likely not doing it very effectively, one or the other, right? And so that's one of the things that stands out to me as well, is that it enables them to get the right people in the right seat to deal with it. And the heavy lifting is done. And not only the cost savings from headcount, but cost savings if you get a fine or you've got to spend time, with legal issues, is even bigger, right? So I think that's huge.